Oh, Miles, my dear, we have so much to talk about, so much ground to cover. I was looking at the chapters in my book. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta talk to him about this and this and this.
Are you talking about this book?
Yeah, that book right there. Hey, you know what I found? You're probably not recording, but I went and got it. This is my
Just a wee bit further back.
presidential.
Hold it a bit further back.
From what? What?
I can't. It's out of focus. Just a wee bit further. Yeah. Special guest. Yeah. Number 3. Still a bit out of focus. Tiny bit further
Um.
back. Yeah, that's it. Oh, you're. Oh, that's it. Manchester, December 29th, 1970. You don't look old enough to be born 1970.
I was born in '62. This was. I was 8.5 years old. Uh, but I still kept this. I mean, the little voice said, this is proof. That I
Things
was
like
there.
that are very important.
Right. Here's the thing. When I
Now,
was
now, because people may not have heard what that's from in part, because this is part 2.
right.
What does that refer to?
Okay, and we're still taping, correct?
We're
Okay.
recording,
Okay, great. This refers to when I was eight
and
and a
this is
half years
basis
old.
140 part 2, I think.
Do do.
2.
This was a day, October 28th, 1970. I was taken to the Rochester airport with my family, with my mother, father, sister. We go to the airport. Air Force One rolls up. Out pops Tricky Dick and his wife Pat, and she walks up to me, hands me a single long stem red rose. Blah blah blah. I felt that it was kind of like like a Mason.
But why
Uh,
why were you invited in the first place? Were you just simply
what-
walking down the street and it says, "Hey, look, we got the president want to give you a rose. Could you just pop by, please?"
well, my parents were involved in politics, which is another layer. With my dad working with the supercomputer and all this kind of stuff. Oh man, there's just so much stuff. And so I think,
Okay, well, just take a
yeah,
little bit of take a breath and
yeah,
explain it.
right. So I'm there, and it's 1970. It's a dismal day. And I looked that up when I was writing my book. I'm writing about this event, and I'm like, oh my gosh, thank God I've got this name tag. And I'm having my memories, but I wanted to confirm my memories because I'm always like questioning things, right?
That's good. That's the right
Right.
thing to
So
do.
right. So I went into the weather for that day in Rochester, and yes, it was a dismal. It was kind of a Londony day. It was a London fog. It was just kind of a craptaculous October day, and
Just to remind people, where's Rochester?
Um, Rochester is very famous for. We have a hospital there, world renowned Mayo Clinic.
All right.
So it's where the Mayo Clinic is, if you've ever heard of that,
Yeah.
in Minnesota, very close to the Mississippi River. So the southern point of Minnesota, like if I don't know, Minnesota, I don't know. If this was Minnesota,
Well, if you hold your
it
hand
would
like
be.
that, that's horizontal, and that's America. You got
Oh,
Canada on
America.
top and
Right.
Mexico underneath.
So Minnesota, we're the Mississippi River, where the Mississippi River
All
starts.
right. Well, that's a big river in America, apparently.
Right, Mississippi. I don't know. It's
Okay, so
kind of
you're
big.
south of St. Louis. Is that right?
No, no, no. We're north. We're the beginning of the Mississippi River.
Is that Rochester, New York?
Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota, of course. But I'm thinking,
Minnesota.
yeah, God. I mean, how
And
many
there is a
times do you have to say
Rochester, New York.
Minnesota to mean you're in Minnesota, not New York?
Nope, we're Minnesota. I'm right in the middle. We're right in the middle of the whole ding dang country. Ah, Lake Superior. If there was Lake Superior, the little pointy finger, that's kind of where the Mississippi starts. The Great Lakes,
Yeah,
and there's the little pointy finger. So Mississippi kind of starts off of that, and it cuts right through the path in the middle of the United States and
yeah.
goes down to Louisiana.
And the
So
Ohio River joins it. Is that right?
something like that somewhere.
There's a
Yeah, a
V in
lot
there
of lot
somewhere.
of convergences, all kinds of
Yeah.
convergences. Yeah, so we're there, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I got this name tag. My parents, here comes Air Force One. And, I don't even remember
Now,
Richard
was
Nixon.
this in an election year?
I think so. I think he was running for re-election because he's in Air Force One,
Right. Okay. Yeah.
1970. Here's the cool thing, because I did this speech for MUFON, and when I was writing my book, blah, 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 I didn't put these things in the book because I'm like, it's a little, it's a little much. But I looked up Richard Nixon's presidential diary because there is an official diary for each president. So I'm like, I went and looked it up. What was his day like? Here's the cool thing. And I have it. I have all these papers.
Oh,
and
this
you
is
can
good.
do
This is cool. Not every day you meet the president of the United States.
Oh, I'm weird. I meet a lot of celebrities. I'm that person.
Do they
I'm
meet
weird.
you, or do you meet them?
I don't know. It just kind of all happens.
Being a bit too
It
subtle
happens
there.
because it's a frequency thing. It's a frequency thing.
Yeah, it's a frequency thing. Yeah.
It's a frequency thing. So, okay, so here's the deal with Pat and this, and you can all look it up. Go into the presidential thing. I went and looked at the papers. Everybody and their brother on the plane is noted. Like some dipshit, like this person, everybody on the plane, there's the manifesto or manifest.
I
or
reckon
whatever.
if you're actually on Air Force One, you're probably more than, well, maybe you would be a simple clerk.
You could be, and your name would be on the docket because they had the passenger list. It's in the presidential diary.
Is that before it became a 747?
Yeah, I don't think it was a 747.
Well, they
my
only flew the bloody
recollection-
things around then, so it probably wouldn't be. Sorry, that's me being stupid.
In my recollection, it wasn't that big. It was smaller. Okay,
It would be
That
a
was my
707.
or 20. Who knows? I don't know. But Pat Nixon is not on the manifest. She's not on the list as a passenger at all for that day. So you can find the papers of, because they started off in they were in Milwaukee and then they came to Rochester. She's not on the manifest, and she's not on the manifest that's going from Rochester to their next
Well,
place.
she wouldn't be a passenger. She'd be part of the president's lot, wouldn't she?
Right. But every person on the plane is listed. I found the papers. I have the papers, and you can look this up. Go look at presidential diaries. Go into Richard Nixon. Go into October 28th, 1970, and you will find this. And it literally says everybody. It'll say the AP, the press. It names everybody on the plane. Everybody. Pat Nixon is not mentioned. And here she pops off the plane and hands me a rose.
That is a big deal.
It's weird.
No, that is a big deal. I mean, that's like, no, that's a big deal. I mean, that gives you the chance to talk at parties. That's a big deal.
Oh my God. You just upset me. And a lot of times,
Dana, it's impolite to die while I'm in the middle of a recording. Do you want to catch your breath?
No, I'm good. Here's the deal. My parents were involved in politics. Me as a child. They dragged me to all these parties. Here I am, a little girl, and I write about this in the book. And we can get into Hollywood and adrenochrome and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to tell you, nobody touched me to the best of my knowledge. And I don't even want to do hypnosis to find out if this is true. But I feel that I knew and I was aware, because I'm very much aware of my situation and everything like that, that I was pretty much forgotten. But I was dragged to all of these soirees and parties with my parents.
Yeah.
Now, my sister's 7 years older and my brother's 14 years older. They could have left me at home. Why was I dragged to all these? And I'm talking about Hubert Humphrey. You might recognize the name. I'm meeting dignitaries, okay? And I'm just a child. Why? But you know what?
What did your parents do? I mean, did your parents specifically make sure you were going to be there, or was it part of was the rest of the family there, or what?
No, no, just me. One or two. I think I only remember my sister being with, as I said, 7 years older. I only remember her being there at one party one time. But mostly she was having her life, doing her thing. She's, probably a teenager because if I'm like 6 or 7, she's 7 years older. She's 14, doing her own thing. But this is in the evening. These are cocktail parties, the soirees of the 60s, the cigarettes and the martinis, baby, and the whole dancing around and loose lips and all this kind of stuff. And all the other children.
Beatles breaking up, all that?
No, not yet. Not yet. But here's the deal. All the other children, because this is how it was for us. This is how it was in suburbia of Minnesota in the 60s. When your parents had a party, you were sequestered to your bedroom.
No.
You were not seen. You were not heard. You were given some food and you were stowed away. And so
they gave you some food. My God.
Well, maybe, if you're lucky. But why were all these children locked in their rooms and I'm out in the soiree? And this happened for years. I'm out with the adults. No, I'm not having, I'm not like being like Drew Barrymore or something like that. I'm not imbibing or anything like that. I'm just a little girl.
Are you suggesting something else happened when you were out with the other adults?
I don't think so. I really don't. I really don't think so. Because I do feel that I remember them and I was aware. Now,
aware of
and
what?
Literally, I don't want to go into hypnosis. I wouldn't want to know. And I don't think so. I don't think so. And I would take my craptaculous box of broken crayons and my Green Acres coloring book, and I would just entertain myself. And maybe I kind of loved it because, I was eating rumaki, I was eating cheese balls, I was having all this good stuff, man. I love hors d'oeuvres. And then here's the table or whatever, and I'm doing that. I literally, in my heart, I don't believe that I was used in any way.
Okay.
I really
you weren't part of any Monarch program.
Sexual. Right.
And do you know what that means?
What's that?
The Monarch program?
Oh, yeah, for the kids, yeah. Terrible.
Okay.
I'm not in that project. What I'm going to tell you is what I firmly believe. I don't think I'm a white hat, but I'm some part of Eyes on the Ground, a military project. I was used in that way. So as far as like a dignitary, because you watch, like, there's this show Ender's Game or something like that. Like, why in Ender's Game are they using children to talk to the aliens and all that kind of stuff? And I kind of believe that it's because when you're younger, you're able to do this telepathy, this communication. So that's what I think. That's why I was there. Now maybe my sister would say, oh, she just wasn't interested in babysitting. But let me tell you, what daughter is able to rule the roost and tell the parents, oh, I'm not going to babysit? That doesn't happen. I should have been left at home. Why was I dragged around? I have no idea. But I think we all know.
What are you saying?
Well, I think they all knew that what I was doing, the work that I was doing, that I was swapped for alien technology. And the guy who recently is CIA, I'm sorry, who gave me this file that he found in the back of a desk recently from Sperry Udac from 1960, whatever. None of it lined up. So, that's when you're
now
like,
explain all that. It's all a bit rushed. Explain the guy. Okay. Explain what the file is.
All right. So this is a little bit about manifestation, because when I pray for things, they manifest. So after the book, and here I am, and I'm like, gosh, wouldn't it be nice to have a picture of my dad with Hubert Humphrey? Wouldn't it be nice to have indications or, my dad's background. I don't know who he was working for when, because like I was a kid. My sister's the person who could answer those questions, or my brother, because they were more adults. Excuse me, they would know more. I don't. Anyway, so I have all these questions. And then one day I get a telephone call. And now on my cell phone, I don't answer the phone to odd numbers, because if you do, then it's spam and you get 20 million spam calls, blah, 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 blah. So my voicemail literally says, if I don't know you, I'm not answering. Please hang up, text me, email me, whatever, but I'm not picking up. Anyway, but I was waiting for a phone call from somebody from a healthcare thing. And so I picked up, which is very unusual. But hey, my whole life is very unusual. It's weird. Anyway, so I pick up, and there's this guy on the end of the phone. He's like, hey, don't hang up. Don't hang up. I'm like, okay. And he's like, I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm like, okay. And he goes, I used to work at Sperry Univac, and I bought a desk from them 30 years ago. And just recently, I was cleaning out the desk, and behind one of the drawers, I found this file about your father. And my wife said, oh, I should just throw it away. But I thought maybe you'd like it, because there's some photographs in there, and there's some letters and everything like that. You might want it. I'm like, yeah, sure. Yeah, whatever. Because I'm like, oh my God, this is communication from the dead. My dad's been gone since 2010. And I wish I knew all these things. Oh my gosh. About him. So I'm like, okay. I go over to his house and I pick up the file, and he's very specific about what time I can pick up the file and all this kind of stuff. And I'm sorry, CIA, I'm exposing you and whatever. Come get me, blah, blah, blah. We work together, right? Anyway. So I go to his house, I pick up the file. Now, number one, I want to be grateful to him. Like, what do I get this dude? Because, he's literally probably about 70 years old, maybe. I'm sorry. He seems to be older than me. And I'm talking to him like, oh, what did you do? Were you an electrical engineer? My dad was an electrical engineer. And he keeps saying, oh, I wish I worked with your dad. I wish I knew your dad. Like, that's an odd thing to say. Like, you just found a file. Why do you care about working with my dad or knowing my dad? What do you know about my dad? Why you would want to work with your dad, my dad, and know my dad? What do you know that I don't know? Well, he says all these things, and I'm like, what am I going to get him? A bottle of wine? I don't know if he drinks. Chocolate? It's a dude. A candle? It's a dude. I don't know. How do I say thank you? So I hand him a copy of my book. And then he's like, well, when the book gets really famous, and I'm like, okay, like my book's going to get really famous. Oh, come back and autograph it for me. And I'm like, well, I don't know about that, but I'll autograph it for you right now, And so I autographed it for him. And he was like something about his children finding me on Facebook or something. I don't even know. Blah, blah, blah. So he says all these things. And I'm thinking he's handing me just a little piece of paper, with some papers in it. But no, it's one of those burgundy colored, like accordion kind of files.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's a file. And it's pristine. It's clean. Now, I don't know about you. And I try to be a very good, I try to keep my house tidy. But literally, if you went into my kids' bedrooms, now this man said, he's an IT guy, right? So I'm thinking he's specific about numbers, right? There's clue one. He's specific about numbers. He told me he bought this desk from Sperry Univac 30 years ago. 30 years ago, Sperry Univac didn't exist. Number two, if you went into my kids' rooms and went behind their desk, and my kids are just now like in their 30s, but I guarantee you a lost file in the back of their desk would have scum and dirt, like felt, basically, on it. No. This was pristine, and all the papers are not yellowed. They look brand new. Here we go.
Did any of the papers contain like the word classified or anything on it?
How did you know? You must be psychic.
Whoa, cheap. Oh, God.
I'll drink to that. So I'm just like, I'm not really looking. I'm just like going, oh my God, it's an accordion. And he's like, when your book gets famous. And I'm like, wow, thank you if you know something. Anyway, so I'm kind of feeling like there are positive forces trying to help me. And actually, just so you know, I'm being shadow banned on Facebook. Like I post something and it goes, dink, like nobody sees it. I'm just super shut down. Anyway, so I got to find some kind of media thing. Anyway, whatever. That's a different story. So I come home. Now, my husband is a total muggle. He's a normie. He doesn't really even know about my book. I don't want him to read my book. It would be too much for him. It would be upsetting for him. So I compartmentalize, like us getting married. I never told him about who and how I am. So I guess you could call me a liar because I didn't tell him about these things. Like, who's going to date you? Especially back in the end of the 80s and the 90s, when all that. I'm like, I ain't bringing that up. No way. So anyway, fast forward. I come home and I open it up and I pull. I'm like, holy crap, because there's all these proofs. Okay, for people who are of the newer generations, we used to have a thing called a camera. It had film in it, and you would maybe have a photographer, and they would take a bunch of pictures. And so there'd be a strip of film, but you don't want to print up all those pictures. So they have something called a proof. So there would be like this sheet, and then here are all
It's a contact sheet. They just put it down and.
Yep. So here are all these proofs of my dad with Hubert Humphrey. And I'm like, I mean, oh my God, I'm getting the chills right now. I'm like, I had prayed for this. Here it is. Next was a letter from a woman that I thought maybe my dad knew from church. She just seemed so sweet. Back in the 70s and 80s, women used to wear these jackets with these big bow tie kind of like shirts. And she's just sweet. She's kind of got that, who's this guy, Hamilton hair thing. And in it, she's writing my dad, about her life. And she's like, I don't know how to explain you to my husband. But, she's also saying, like, we should all get together, like my mom and dad and her husband. Like, I don't know how to explain you to my husband. And then, there were just all these things in there. And then the paperwork of my dad, like 1960. And all of these, and he's applying for a job or whatever. And there's all these things, classified, NASA, Texas, NASA, I don't know if it was Ohio or something, like all these different places. And, I didn't know my dad spoke at NASA, talked to NASA, had anything to do with NASA.
Can you be any more specific as to what departments in NASA he was involved with?
Yeah, they were just kind of, I could go get the file, but it was defense.
Do you want to go and get the file?
Well, I could, but I don't think it's that important. It's defense. It was talking of, Defense Department stuff.
Yeah, but NASA isn't a defense contractor. It's a space.
Right. But my dad's an electrical engineer, and it's Defense Department and whatever their thing. But he's talking rockets. We're talking going out of space, outer space stuff.
Now, hold on here. There's the Apollo program. I think it's Apollo. I think Apollo 12's just gone up by then.
We hadn't walked on the moon yet. It's 1960.
Well, they walked to the moon allegedly in 69.
Right. So this is very, very early. And all these papers say classified.
So this is the Gemini program?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
That's U.S. Air Force.
Familiar. Right, but he's talking to NASA.
Okay.
So it says NASA on this. And yeah, there's words, Air Force and stuff like that. I haven't, this is probably about 2-3 months. So I
think the Gemini program was an Air Force thing, and the Army was I think the Navy was the other one.
Well, and my dad was a radio operator in the Korean War. And let me tell you a little something weird about that. In our basement, there was this box. I'm going to say it's about this big. Now, in high school, I took ham radio operation and I learned Morse code and all that kind of stuff because I'm weird. I'm like a dude, kind of. And I took that
You did
class.
Morse code exams.
Yes, I did. I failed, but whatever. I did.
Well, I mean, the old Morse code, I think, is what every girl should do.
Da
Study
da
Morse
da da
code.
da 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 da.
Yeah.
CQ CQ. Anyway,
Yeah,
so,
CQ. Yeah. My God.
I know. See, I'm a guy's girl.
We need to get our anoraks on to talk that kind of stuff.
I know. I'm a guy's girl. I am. Because, I've had this fabulous, interesting life. Anyway, so here we are. And, okay, so, later. So when I'm younger, I'm like, And I asked my dad about this box, and it's got dials, and it's got that weird paint on it that's kind of like bubbly. It's green. It's weird. It looks military, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's sort of...
And I'm like...
I think it's a heavy duty plus spray on or paint. It's
yep, it's got that, but it's small. It's not that big, and there
gray or something.
May have been a hold thing, something or other. But anyway, so I remember asking my dad about it, and he said, "Oh, well, I can talk to people around the world with this device."
Shortwave radio.
Sure, but he's talking around the world. So I'm thinking more like ham or whatever, but if you're
radio
talking,
ham. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. We don't have an antenna. It's not hooked up to anything.
It
plugs in.
It's
electrical.
Are you saying it's working?
Yeah. And then he talks at night to people around the world, and he's telling me about this person, that, blah, 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 blah. But we don't have a tower. There's no antenna like a coaxial cable or anything plugged in or anything like that.
Well, a coax cable. Yeah, there's no.
We didn't have that.
This is now when we're getting into sort of.
It's just a box and it's plugged in. It's got dials. It's like dials and stuff like that. But it's not a very big thing. Which when I think I did my ham radio operation, the boxes were bigger and you got a big antenna in your yard. Right?
Yeah.
No, there's no antenna. Nothing. It's not connected to anything. But he is able to, and I know this is true, talk around the world.
So he's able to talk to people as opposed to just hear things.
No, he's talking, communicating to people around the world.
Now that's a big deal.
Radio. Yeah, I know. And then one day that box was gone. I don't know what happened to it.
How long was it after that happened? Any indications on the box? Could you make a drawing of it?
Gosh, I'd really, really have to go in to a deep meditation. I'm just going to say the front of the box was about this big. It feels like there was like some indicator things and some knobs. It was that weird spray paint, but we did not. And you can go to the house to this day. There are no cables. There was no major antenna, not an antenna in any way, shape, or form. What I'm trying to imply is that I believe it was part alien technology. How else could my dad have been talking to people around the world? And just so you know,
what I'm looking for is any kind of a number on it.
Oh no,
any model number?
No, oh gosh, no.
Any indications? Any kind of symbols?
Well, they were just normal frequency symbols. Normal, I believe some of the dials.
You know the difference between megahertz, kilohertz.
There was all that kind of stuff, but it's analog. It's not digital.
Yeah.
And, I believe like there's kind of like different, like the half crescent and then different colors. And then you'd, dial it in and stuff like that. That's what it seems
it wasn't a CB radio?
Oh, gosh, no, because he talked to people in Australia. He was talking to people in, all around the world.
And did you hear anything they said?
What's that?
Can you remember anything they said?
I didn't listen to him talk to them. I think maybe one time. They were just chatting about things.
Precisely what date was this?
Oh, gosh, that box was in our house probably until the 80s.
When?
1980, at least.
Oh, right.
Or
was
later.
It still in use in 19? Was it still in use in 1980?
Yeah, I'm thinking so. I mean, it was in the basement on his desk. And I mean, it had been there my whole life. But now as an adult, I'm like, baloney. It's not connected to any kind of antenna. But I
So
know
that was obviously in the old house. It's not in your house as of now.
Oh, no. I mean, it was my parents' house. It's in
Yeah.
Fridley. It's just a little rambler, a 1950s little rambler. But I'm sitting there going, if he was to talk, I mean, I don't even think shortwave. He's in the basement. I mean, if it was a shortwave wave radio,
you're familiar with the kind
out.
of coaxial connectors, VHF type of connectors.
No.
There wouldn't be. They're fairly big things.
No, there's none of that. No big.
I mean, I've got some
nothing.
around from here. Maybe if I get one, if you want to just hold on, or I mean, I just to sort of show people what we're talking about.
Is this time for jokes then? Okay. Here's my joke I learned in elementary school because I was told you always have to have a joke. Like every human has to, person needs a good joke. Your one joke. Here's my one joke. So dumb. Have you ever smelled mothballs? I'm telling jokes. Have you ever smelled mothballs?
I've got some valves here. I used to be a pirate radio guy. We ran 1 megawatts effective radiated power. Okay, this is Kiss FM 103.7 out of Monaghan. This is a cable. This is.
Oh yeah, no, I know that because I'm a techie guy. I'm like an IT guy. No, we don't have any of that.
Yeah, nope. So just to let people know the sort of size of these things.
Right.
That's a short.
Yeah, that wasn't even invented back then.
Well, no, these are old. These ones. These are UHF. Well, we call them a UHF thing. Antenna.
Yeah, I think UHF frequency was part of that because this is before FM radio. Okay.
Well, FM radio's been around since the 1950s.
Right, but the thing of it is, not on the radio stations. Like there wasn't until kind of the 70s.
That the CBs people went FM.
Right, but I mean, like on the radio we had AM.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, FM and it's in stereo. Well, everything was mono, and then it was stereo and all that kind of stuff. This is before all that. So and I talked
they had VHF radio in the 50s.
Right.
Which we called it VHF, and the Broken Biscuit Company, otherwise known as the BBC, would broadcast on that. We had 2 channels or something, 3 channels.
What I'm saying is, it's a very small box, like even smaller than, like it would be like, oh God.
I'm going to get another thing. It's just, I have to dig this out of a box.
Okay. So here's the joke. Have you ever smelled mothballs? It's terrible. How'd you get their legs apart? That was my joke. That was my, 3rd grade joke. I know. And back in 3rd grade, back then, we had, this is terrible, babies in the blender. There are all these blender jokes. It's disgusting. Oh my God. I don't even want to get into it, but yeah. I don't even know. So, 60s were very, very different. All right. Here. You can read an whatever from the book. Look. Oh, here's me. Oh. Hello.
Right. This is a SWR meter.
Right. Okay. So if you squished it and moved the dials to the side, if you hacked it,
I mean, this is the kind of connector we're talking about here.
Right, but it didn't have any of that. Yeah.
So it didn't have anything like this, right?
Nope.
And these are different kinds of connectors. This is a BNC.
Had no connectors.
This is something we modified for pirate radio.
Right. So your dial and your frequency, frequency
move
gauge,
the dial.
right, was smaller. So there was a couple of gauges on there. So if you hacked that thing and made it just a little bit longer, like it's more
Well,
like
these are my two hands around this. So is it
right.
big? Is
So it
it
was
bigger this
thinner.
way or what?
It was half the thickness.
Half the
So
height.
half.
So it's more like a car radio type thing.
Yeah, a little bit more, a little bit bigger, but about like that and about that size. It was about that size.
And this was transmitted. This is a transceiver all over the world.
He was able to communicate. He talked to me about it. Like it was just, I just took it for fact. I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think it was unusual because it was in the house. I mean, I didn't know as a little girl. I didn't know we had to have like some big antenna if you're actually going to talk to Australia. I didn't know that. I just took it for whatever. But I know he was a radio operator in Korea. He was lost behind enemy lines. He was in one of the big excursions, all this kind of stuff. And in my book, I do wonder if he did not become a Manchurian candidate, because I know all of that stuff was going on.
So yes, in Korea they would have done that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because my dad, they kept, as I put it in my book, they kept extending his stay. So he, like, let's say he was supposed to be there a year and a half, it just kept going and going for him. Why? And when he came back, he was just, my dad suffered from PTSDs so
PTSD
bad.
or whatever.
Yes. And I wish I knew about that. But he would freak out in bed and all this kind of stuff and just very traumatic. And I wish.
Was he
my heart breaks
captured?
now.
Was he a prisoner?
Not to my knowledge. But he did, see, here's the thing. My father, never spoke to my brother or my sister about his time in Korea, but he would talk to me. Black ops people would come to the house and they'd drink like 2 cases of beer and drive home or whatever, like outrageous. But I knew they were black ops because they would say that and they would talk about it. And why are they coming to our house? These black ops people and all this kind of stuff. Like they were just friends with my dad. Blah, 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 blah. And my dad was involved in politics and all this kind of stuff. And we knew everybody. And literally, okay, there's a Mandela effect that happened.
Explain that. Explain what you mean by the Mandela effect.
So, Nelson Mandela was incarcerated.
This is South Africa we're talking about.
Yes, South Africa for a number of years.
Due to the apartheid thing.
Political prisoner. But there was a time where people thought he died in prison. But then, so that was one storyline on the planet that some people thought they experienced. But then other people are like, no, he came out. He became, did all these other things.
And then he became president. He became president of South Africa. And it's known that he was an MI6 agent, asset of the MI6.
Oh, well, see, I didn't know that. Well, then there you go. Okay, because, we have the Hadron Collider. We have all these timelines that are being messed with, which is actually why we need to write things down, because they're going away and they're messing with us.
What do you mean writing things down and things going away? What do you mean by that?
Well, I almost think like these timelines are being messed with, right? So I think that's Mandela effect. So, okay, so there's people that thought that he died. And then there's people that say, oh, no, he became president, blah, blah, blah. So there's 2 different timelines.
There's actually a factory in the Midlands of England that you went past on the motorway. And in World War II, that chimney, big factory chimney, was known to have come down. I think it was bombed or something happened to it. Well, some friends of mine drove up past there and the factory chimney is there. It shouldn't be.
I'm going to tell you. Yeah, I'm telling you. Because this goes back to the aliens and frequencies and holograms and all this stuff. And so when you start to think about all these things, it makes sense. And they're trying to manipulate it. This is why, again, I'm going to say, stay whole, holy human. We need to keep our wits about us. We need to use our own powers. We're being gaslit.
Explain those powers that you're talking about.
Okay, well, if you're a Christian, so, I grew up in a Christian household, I heard this guy named Jesus or whatever, Yahweh, whatever, and he was saying, as I can do, so can you also. What does that mean? What did he do? What did he do? So take a look at his story. And this man is saying, as I can do, whether you think he's imaginary
Explain
or not.
the context of that. Who's this man?
Jesus, Jesus
Oh,
of
the Jesus
Nazareth.
guy, right.
This Jesus guy, who was a rabbi. He was Jewish, right? Now, if you want to get really into it, because I write about this in the book, and I think I lose a lot of people. Because I write about this. I have a hard time. I was actually studying Orthodoxy and becoming Orthodox.
Orthodox Jew? Sorry.
No, Orthodox Christian.
Yeah, which is, now explain what you mean about that to somebody who doesn't know.
Orthodox Christian is they say that they are the original church. So they are the ones that say that, they're the apostles that went out. You have the Greek, Ethiopian, and
You have
they went
the
out.
Russian Orthodox and the Greek Orthodox.
Yes, and you have a bunch of different houses that the apostles went out and created these things. And so I was studying that, and I go in and out of Christianity a lot because I'm like, this is bullshit. No, this is true. This is, it goes back and forth. Because now I'm like, Constantine, what the hell? He saw an alien in the sky. Because then I'm kind of like, okay, maybe I can dig this for a half a second. So Constantine, that was his big vision at the bridge, which was it not in Britannia? Where was that battle? Where was that? Anyway, Constantine. Maybe it was in Rome. Anyway, I digress. Where were we going with that?
Why do you call Great Britain Britannia?
Because I'm weird.
No, there'd be reasons for that.
Well, because it's an empire. And
Right.
and I have...
It's the old name.
Yeah. Well, it's an old regime, isn't it?
Ooh, one-eyed wink. Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you can only do a bloody one-eyed wink. What a stupid thing is that to say? Okay.
Well, I'm just going to say, you remember when I was talking about, like, aliens have always been here and stuff like that? And, like, we kind of remember Diana and the things that she said, which I would say is true with the Holy Roman Empire. See, the Roman Empire is still here, people. None of this changed. They just gaslit us, right? Oh, so where was I going with?
Okay, we're talking about this
what...
box that your father had, and it seemed to be communicating with things, and you're talking about some kind of special ops. So he left was he Navy or Air Force?
He was Army.
Army, okay.
Infantry. So he was in a tank. And like I said, yes. And so all these special ops people and stuff.
And this is in Korea.
He was in Korea, and he had an extended stay.
What was the average stay meant to be? 6 months or something?
Oh, no. I think he was there like another year and a half. Like, he was overextended. So he could have been in prison. I really feel like the whole Manchurian Candidate thing, he would have been involved in, because he did say his tank was, he discovered they were behind enemy lines. And when he came back, I think it was one of these big, huge battles, like everyone was dead. So it literally saved him being lost. And my grandmother, who was in St. Cloud, Minnesota, called up my mother. And my mother and dad weren't married at the time. But in the middle of the night, my grandmother called up my mother because she had the gift. She called my mother and she goes, I think Donald's in trouble. I think he's in trouble. And literally through letters and notations and stuff like that, the night that my dad was lost behind enemy lines and everybody died was the night that my grandmother called my mother up at like 1 or 2 in the morning and said, oh my God, I think Don's in major trouble. And in my book, I do say, what soldier does not call out for his mother, right? What soldier does not? So I do believe that whatever happened to him on that night, the shock wave rolled across the planet and my grandmother picked it up. And, so those things kind of happen. There's a lot of things. So anyway, so I do think Manchurian Candidate, he's an electrical engineer. He works on a supercomputer. He's with NASA. His papers say classified. We know all the top people, politicians and stuff. All these kinds of weird things. Pat Nixon giving me a rose. I mean, it's all very
What
suspicious.
do you think that rose was about?
Like I said, I think it was a, here you go, thank you for your service. Now, I'm not getting a pension.
And she wasn't, the person who gave that was not on a manifest, so it officially didn't happen because she wasn't there.
Yeah, officially it didn't happen. But the media came running over to me and interviewed me. So here is some proof that if you were able to, and actually I'm doing a speech, I'm actually doing an event in Rochester, June 1st, and I'm going to talk to them about this because I couldn't find it in their newspapers. See, I dig for this stuff. I'm looking for it. Is there pictures or something? But I was interviewed by the radio stations. There wasn't TV camera, which I think was very interesting. I think the cameras were more for, so they came to the Rochester airport and they were swept away to like a civic center in Rochester, and then Richard Nixon did his whole speak and the hoorah rah and all that kind of stuff, blah blah blah. But yeah, so she's not even on the airplane, and she comes and I found where she got the roses from. They were given to her in Milwaukee on that flight. She was given these roses. See, I'm looking this stuff up, people. I'm digging because I don't believe in anything.
Yeah,
unless
that's
it's
the right
something
thing.
that I experience, And I want to know the truth, and I want to know the facts, and I also want to be able to be a legitimate person to talk to people and say, these are the facts, and this is legitimately what happened. Here I have witnesses, this, that, or the other thing, and I feel so grateful. And I feel grateful for the CIA guy to hand me this file, which was like, even my husband. Oh, back to that file. He said he bought the desk. He's an IT guy, right? Spare you in the back, so he's not an idiot. He hands me the file, blah, blah, blah. I got this desk. They were getting rid of, office supplies and stuff 30 years ago. The final notation in that file was from the 90s, 1990s. Like late 90s. Or like 2000, it was 2005. So it was only 20 years ago. The file goes back to about 2005, 2008, somewhere in there. But he said 30. And I say to my husband, because even my husband, the mogul, sits there and goes, none of this makes sense. Like, this doesn't add up. Like, what the heck? And I'm like, yeah, he's an IT guy. He said 30 years. You don't mix up 20 and 30 years. You just don't. They're pretty big chunks. And yeah, so they were tracking my dad all through this. But thank you, CIA. Thank you, white hats. I actually think he's probably a white hat. Oh, and that's what we got to get into is the ships. We got to get into the ships. Remember we were talking about that when we took a break? The spaceships. So, the white hats.
What's this thing about a spaceship thing?
Well, remember I talked about when the vortex would open up and the ships would come in.
Yeah.
Right. And Reagan would talk about it.
Are these ships like the size of a fighter or a B-52 or?
Oh God, no. Remember Star Wars?
Yeah.
Remember when I saw that size? These suckers are huge. These suckers are city blocks long. So you got the big ships, and then you got the little ships. It's like we're the little
the fighters.
Yeah, like the little fighters. But nobody's really fighting. I never really saw people fighting, but it was kind of like we're here. It was more of a presence, like we're here.
Where is this big ship flying into and out of?
Okay, so if I'm standing on the yard, they're coming maybe north, south. They're coming from the west, heading east. They're coming from the west, heading east.
So, I mean, you're looking up or something? Or is this closer to the ground?
Oh, I'm looking up. They're way the hell up there. They're up in the clouds.
All right.
They're way up there. And this continued with me for many, many years. Okay, so
just getting to the sides of this Star Wars ship. I mean, if a 707 or 74, if an airliner was beside it, how big would the airliner be?
The airliner would be a fourth of the size, at least, of the Scouts. Okay,
Right.
we're talking the big ships, and the big ships have continued. Oh gosh, I'm gonna say last time I saw some of the ships, and they do hide behind clouds, but not like how people are like, oh, here's this disc and here's this cloud and all that kind of stuff. That's not how this works. That's not how that is. These ships come in and they're more of a, like a streamlined cloud, and they just kind of hide behind that a little bit. But they do know, and they know that I'm watching them.
Yeah.
I know that they know that I see them.
So
I
are
know
you
that
talking something like in the shape of a when you make a paper airplane? It's that sort of shape, or is it more
yeah,
of a
yeah,
triangle,
just
more of
like
an
in Star
equilateral
Wars.
triangle? Yeah.
Yep, a big ship. Now there are some differences, and there are different types of ships. And oh my god, like recently, about a year ago, so sometimes I've seen coming in through this portal, because I think it's a established portal now that we have. So at first it was this, that, and they were coming in, um, and you could say that it's a doppelganger Earth, like a secondary Earth, and we're going back and forth between these two. And I've been on that
I mean,
planet.
would you see any so-called conventional military aircraft coming through that portal?
Um, you could say it would be. I don't feel that it was necessarily alien. I feel that they are ships that could be going to this other secondary Earth, doppelganger, like an
So
equal.
why do you think about the secondary Earth?
Because I've gone there, and things are more like the 1800s and stuff. The frequency I can't vibe with, so I don't really see the people, but I see the buildings, the planets, and all this kind of stuff. But what I was going to say is, recently I've seen more like blimps or dirigibles coming through. And then about a year or two ago, I just love the news, and people are like, oh, you should stay off the news. And I'm like, no, because this is information. This is information. And there was this big article that talked about how we're going to now float these dirigibles up in the sky, so you can get satellite and all this kind of stuff. And right away, I'm like, that's a bunch of baloney, because this is about the time of the China balloon kind of a thing. It was about that, but it was before it that I had seen these dirigibles coming through. And so a lot of times, the ships from off planet are round, like their jets are rounded, kind of more like how our jets used to be in the 50s. Like if you thought about TWA, Trans World Airlines, I think that's what it was called, or Northwest Orient or whatever. The earlier planes had more rounded nose. Things were round, blah, 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 blah. These ships look more like that, and dirigibles started coming through. And I'm like, oh, that's curious. Why are we having dirigibles coming through? And I'm like, how can you get a dirigible through this? Because it looked more like fabric. I'm like, how can this, sustain that? I had a lot of questions. But then in the media, oh, we're going to be putting dirigibles up, for telecommunication or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what a bunch of baloney. You're just trying to hide the fact that dirigibles are going to be, I almost, in my book, I put, like, it's tourism. Like, maybe these people from the other planet are coming over here and go, look at Earth. Oh,
Did you
hot
see
off the
any
coast of San
symbols? Did you
Francisco. What's
see
that?
any symbols on any of these things?
Yeah, so when I'm on the military excursions, and that was the thing, this Netflix thing, because a lot of times I'll get triggered by something. I'm watching this Netflix thing, Three Body Problem, and oh my god, because there was this one part where this ocean liner or whatever is traveling through the Panama Canal. And I don't know why. I mean, they were like this secret program with the aliens, blah, 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 blah. And they're going through the Panama Canal. And then all of a sudden there was one scene like being on the ship, and you could see like out the windows. And I'm like, I have been on those ships. Like that ship's running through the Panama Canal. Like I've been on water boats where they're running big, huge military stuff. And when I'm there, I'm telling you, I can feel the spray. I can smell it. I'm a little bit afraid, like, oh, like, ooh, I could fall off. Like, this is dangerous. So I know I'm there.
So are you
But I'm
saying you've
also
been on
hiding.
an ocean type ship on the Panama
So
Canal?
that one was a big, like, an ocean liner going through the Panama Canal. And I'm just watching this show, so I really need to like think about this. But I know it was a military thing. I know I was traveling back and forth through the Panama Canal on one of these ships. What program? What are they running
But
through the Panama Canal?
what I'm looking for is, have you been on a ship which seems to be traveling through some kind of portal, and it smells as if it's on a sea?
No, okay. I have gone through portals, but it's not a part of these ships. When I've been off planet, I'm usually there. I don't. Although I'm gonna have to say I did meet an entity out in deep space, and I did do the thing like in the movie Contact with Jodie Foster. That was a huge transition. That's a whole nother thing. That's like a huge big thing. I met this crystalline skull in deep, deep space. So deep, there were no planets. No planets. Okay. There was no dots of light. And I met this being. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But these, okay, so on the river, because the aliens follow rivers. I mean, it's like a roadmap, right? So, and you should know. This is another thing that happened to me that last year of writing the book. You need to look at the Ford Motor Plant in St. Paul, Minnesota on the Mississippi River, because we have a lot of limestone and sandstone. That's what our ground is made up with along the riverbanks. For 24/7, 7 days a week for decades, with air guns, not drills, air guns, Ford had crews of people digging tunnels, okay? Digging tunnels. Now, up here in Arden Hills, right next to me, I can walk there. We've got tunnels, military tunnels. And how do I know this? Because my sister used to have to deliver military ordnance papers from Bloomington. She worked at UNIVAC. And she was a dental hygienist, but a guy who knew my dad hired her as an engineer. No college, you're an engineer. Whoop, like a SEP 7 or something like that, like high up. And then she got higher. I don't remember like if she was at level 14 or something like that. But she couldn't fax it, couldn't speedy deliver it, couldn't UPS it. She had to hand deliver it from Bloomington right over here to my area. She got upset one day because as she said, little girl wouldn't let her step past the front desk because she's a civilian. And so then my sister's like, oh, and then I took the elevators, blah, blah. I'm like, elevators, like all the buildings are only one level. I'm like, I don't even know if there's a building with 2 levels, like elevator up for like the handicap, veterans, right? She goes, no. Down into the tunnels. I'm like, down into the tunnels? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, oh my God, they go for miles, and we've got golf carts and bicycles. And it's funny because I met a man.
Just as a point of interest,
Yeah.
are the golf carts left-hand drive or right-hand drive?
In the middle. Who knows? It was probably telepathic. I don't know. I have no idea. I didn't ask her that one. But I didn't even know about this whole Ford Motor Plant thing. But I wrote about it. And so somebody that I know, because I was on a reality show in Norway, and one of the contestants saw my post, blah, 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 reached out to me and he goes, because he worked in he lived right across the street from this. It's called the TCAAP. It's the Twin Cities Army, Army,
Air Corps?
No, Army for like ordnance or something.
Yeah.
Whatever. Blah, blah, blah. The TCAAP. You can look it up. He goes, we lived like a block or two just north of it. And he worked in the paint department at the Ford Motor Company, and his dad worked in the glass department. So when they were sandblasting all this glass 24/7, 7 days a week, never took a break, they were creating glass for cars and stuff like that. He goes, we always knew something weird was going on and secret, and we couldn't prove it. We couldn't talk about it. He goes, thank you for writing about it. And in my house, my firsthand, so my sister's telling me this, and she said there's like 4 or 5 levels, of tunnels with full offices. I'm talking full offices, like a normal building, Anyway, because I'm asking her, and but in my house, because I live very, very close, for years, if I was downstairs at night, I could hear things. I could hear people talking. I could hear it sounded like the TV was on. It sounded literally like a break room. And at first it didn't register with me. And then after a while, I'm like, what the heck? So I got up because I'm like, am I hearing the TV from my neighbors? I'm in the basement, in the dirt, in the basement. Can I hear my neighbors? I'm like, they're not even home this weekend. I come upstairs. My children are in bed. My husband's in bed. There's no TVs on. But if I go downstairs, I can hear people talking. I can hear chairs moving, blah, 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 blah. And during the Biden administration and the Trump administration, all that stuff got shut down and quieted. And then recently I took pictures of it. They started filling in the tunnels. But here's the deal. All the dump trucks, because I went by and I took pictures, all the dump trucks never ran during the day. They were there, and there were people with pickups and stuff like that, but they all just sat right there. And then and nobody's moving in and out, because if it's a construction and they're doing this, there would be a semi loaded, there'd be a front, like a truck picking up the dumpster, and they'd be going in and out, blah, blah, blah. None of that's happening, but the next day I would come by and everything had been moved around. So they were only working at night. We've got Black Hawk helicopters coming in and out of there. We've got the sheriff's department on both quadrants. We've got the Red Bull infantry, the reserves. We got the army. We've got the sheriff's station. We got a ton of muscle on this quadrant of land. I wonder why. Because nothing's going on. And my sister had to go in and out of this gate that wasn't even guarded. It was like a stupid gate, like broken down, like nobody's paying attention to it and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not the only person that heard the trains, because I could hear the trains and I could hear these people. I gave a book, or actually my neighbor ordered a book, and she's newer to the neighborhood. And she goes, yeah, I was reading your book and, about these tunnels and stuff like that. And she goes, when we first moved here, she's like, I would hear it. She could hear like the tunnels, like something going through, like this train. And she goes, I got up at like 2, 3 in the morning. I'm walking around. I can hear it. Like, what's going on? I'm like, it's true, right? And then another friend of mine, he lives up closer to the armory. And he could even hear it sometimes during the day. And he'd say to the neighbor, can't you hear this vibration, this humming? So I know they have tunnels. I know they've got trains down there. I know it's been shut down because on a particular day I could hear, that scraping in a cafeteria or a chair, like at school, and like scrape, 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 like moving furniture, heavy furniture. Yeah, I could hear all that. I could hear them talking little by little. It just started.
Would that be because it was near a ventilation shaft or something?
I'm thinking so. Right under my house. Because I can hear them talking. I can hear TV shows. I literally wanted to turn on my TV to see what TV show they were listening to. Because I could hear like, like that stupid track, like on a comedy show or something like that. So I could hear the TV going and I could hear people talking. But it's like,
well, that means it must be pretty thin floor.
What's that?
It must be like connected by some hard.
Hey, you know what I want? I want somebody to come to my yard that has like one of those ground things, to scope out if it's
I think that you're talking about LiDAR.
Yeah, whatever.
Ground penetrating radar.
Yeah, let's go get some. Let's get some. Let's bring it out here. Let's expose these gums.
where does this bring us to secret underground alien bases, deep underground military bases, which have been shut down just for economic purposes? Maybe they've run out of budget and they're trying to.
Oh my gosh, they're not going to run out of budget. But what they're running out of is support. I think that the more of us that are waking up to what's going on, it's getting harder and harder. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing because I'm not hearing it. It's in this last year, and when they started filling in, I think they're filling in the elevator shafts because back in the day, over time, we were going to put the Vikings Stadium here and stuff like that. It's now in Minneapolis, but there was talk about putting there, and I said to my husband, like, they're never going to develop that area. We've got aliens, we've got dumbs down there, and you're like, you're just weird. You're I'm like, okay, call it whatever. But still, it's toxic. It's toxic from the armory. It's toxic. And somebody else on, we have this thing that's called Nextdoor. It's kind of like Facebook, but it's like for neighbors and you can log in or whatever. And I posted about this and I put the pictures. I'm like, hey, we got dumbs here, people. And a lot of people it just went right over their head. But there was some comments, and one guy's like, yeah, my brother has to go out there and he has to shoot the animals because there'll be deers, this, that, or the other thing that are mal-shaped. They're oddly, like they're odd, they're strange or something like that. And, they're not normal. And this guy has to go out and shoot them. Well, I don't know. I believe this guy is shooting these animals and stuff like that. I believe that to be true. But the toxicity of this huge area, please look it up. Arden Hills, TCAAP, the Twin Cities Army. Dude, it's in my book. Well, I don't know. I have to look it up the different. But anyway, it's there. Just look it up. Yeah. And so I don't know what's going on, but I do know that I've heard these things, and that my sister, who was just being salty after a couple of margaritas, was complaining that some girl wouldn't let her sidestep because my sister was in her, she's a civilian, and a military guy had to come get my sister in order to take her down into the elevators, which she normally was allowed to do. And my sister is not an engineer and didn't go to college for it, but she's an engineer. Like, what the heck? Because a guy that my dad knew hired her. Well, why can't I would like to have that job. I would have liked to have had that job. But anyway. No. Oh, God, no. Are you kidding? Nobody knows about it. No one but me, as far as I'm concerned, and my neighbors and people who've read my book, and, neighbors who've experienced the sounds. Other than that, you're loony and it doesn't exist. Other than my witnessing what's been going on. And let me tell you, right now, you could go over there, tons of military vehicles. And I watch them. And just the other day, my husband and I were driving up Lexington Avenue, Highway 96, Lexington Avenue, and 35W. Look it up, Minnesota. Here we go. And they were maneuvering. And this thing was like this huge Humvee and had these big shields on it and stuff like that, driving down the road. We've got all kinds of military personnel, military vehicles, all this kind of stuff on the property. It's just a bunch of land, right? There's nothing going on here.
Obviously, they are legitimately conducting their business that the army and armed forces would do, and they're just training and doing what they're doing.
Well, yeah, they're just training. Yeah, but we've got, like I said, the Red Bull infantry, like we got all this stuff, and the sheriff's department, and blah blah blah. It's just a lot. The reserves, like there's all these stuff, but nothing's going on. It's okay. Whatever. I don't know, but that's that.
Well, that's we've done quite a lot in part 2. What do you think you want to talk about that specifically due to the I think we mentioned super soldiers, stuff like that. What on earth? Where does that come in on all this?
Well, I don't know. I mean, and I can't be honest about the role that I played other than being the eyes on the ground. I was going to say another chapter is where in the middle of the night. I woke up for no particular reason. I'm probably in 10th grade, something like that. I woke up for no reason. I look outside my window. I can see downtown Minneapolis, and I see a spaceship, a really close spaceship, just flying down the Mississippi River. You know,
A what?
Yeah, not very high over the trees. Okay, so here's the thing. I wake up for no reason. I don't go pee, whatever. I just witness the spacecraft. I go back to bed. Next day, I come home from school. There's an afternoon, like Twin Cities Live or Twin Cities Today or whatever show. And at the end of the show, they open up the lines for people to call in. So here's another thing. It's called KSTP. And you could look up the show. I'm hoping there's a beta tape sitting on a shelf somewhere. So these are all these things like people, if you like, you can look up what I'm trying to say. Anyway, so at the end of the show, normally it'd be like, oh, I love, they open up to callers and, oh, I love that brownie recipe. Or, oh, I can't wait to go to the state fair. Just general callers. And normally it's not men, because it's during the day. It's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Is this a radio show or a TV?
Television. It's just kind of like a, one of those happy breezy. Hi, we got a TV show. Happy breezy. Oh, here's what's going on, in London today. One of those kinds of things. So I'm sure you have them. And this was for the Twin Cities.
I think they call it Light Entertainment Magazine Program.
Kind of like that. Steve and Sharon, local. Local. It's not about the news. It's about what's going on locally. End of the show, they open it up, and the first caller is a dude. And he says, did anybody see that spacecraft last night? Click. Now, I know there's producers. When you call into a show like that, there's a producer. Hello, KSTP. Oh, hi, my name is Greg. I wanted to call in about that brownie recipe. Okay, hang on. Steve will be with you in 1 minute. Just hang on. Don't hang up. And then Greg would be on the show. Whatever. So this guy calls up. Hey, did anybody see that UFO? They click. They hang up on him. Steve and Sharon Edelman, they're like, because that's how we are. We're Norwegians. Next caller, please. So the next, it's another dude, which this is highly unusual, and it's a guy. And he goes, yeah, I saw it. Did anybody see the military chasing it? And then that's when it came back online for me that I was also with the military. I was watching the operation. I was watching them running down in Minneapolis. I was watching the spacecraft going between the buildings and doing all this stuff. And now I'm going to tell you, helicopters not allowed. You're not allowed to get near central of the city or any of this kind of stuff. I was watching personnel hanging out, the Jeeps and all this kind of stuff. It came all flooding back to me. I was like, holy crap, that's right, the military. And I went flying to the kitchen to pick up the phone because our phones hung on a wall. And I'm dialing up the place, but they hung up on him too. They hung up on him. And I kept trying to call for like the next hour, all this kind of stuff. I tried to call the next day. Like they'd even have the names of these guys. But what I loved that it was a witness. These were two men that were witnesses. And this could be on a beta tape somewhere, on a file, on a shelf, in KSTP.
Did you see this craft, this thing, and why was it a spaceship rather than just a plane?
Oh, God, no. Well,
can you draw that?
Well, it was more of a disc, which is unusual for me. I don't really see saucers. Normally they're more airplane-ish or wedge-ish or something different. This was more saucer. And it was scooting down the Mississippi River, which would be to my right, heading towards Minneapolis, heading towards the Ford plant, coming through. We have a lot of ordinances. We were...
Yeah, describe this so-called spacecraft. I'm going to challenge you in this.
It would be more of a disc. Let me tell you, it happened so fast. I just literally saw the disc. But here's the thing. Number one, you are not allowed to fly a plane on there or near there over the Mississippi River. And there would be wires, and we put these bobbles on these wires.
Yeah.
You would hook on them. Like, you don't do that. Airplanes aren't allowed. And we're so close to, just right here, just nearby, we have an Anoka airport. And where they were heading was straight down towards MSP, which is Minneapolis, down to Rochester. We're following the Mississippi River again, okay? And this thing is flying like... Now, I would say the size of this thing as a disc would be the size of a 747, which to me is small. But that would be about the size. So it's highly noticeable. And going fast, like an airplane doesn't go like this fast. A helicopter.
Are you talking about the sort of maneuvering that you would have seen in Independence Day? When they're trying to,
Yeah, it's super fast. It's what, had I gotten up 30 seconds later, I've never, it just blew past everything. It just was like.
Are you suggesting, I'm suggesting you had some kind of connection with the thing which alerted you to why you woke up to see it?
Because I'm the eyes on the ground. I'm a witness for somebody. I'm either a designated point person, because like how you'll have a point person, for like, oh, we need to get our coordinates. Like, okay, we got point people here, there,
Explain
whatever.
What you mean by eyes on the ground.
I think I'm a witness. Like, let's pretend I'm connected to these aliens, which I probably am. I think telepathically, they can see ground things happening through my organic eyes. They're using me as knowledge, wisdom, organically, like as if you had cameras, right? Like if you had a hunting camera set up on your land.
Wake her up. We've got something going there. See if she can see it.
What's that?
No, that's what I'm.
No, yeah. So, but let's say you have a farm and you set up a bunch of cameras on your farm, and and you're walking around with your rifle or whatever, and you're going to hunt some deer or something like that. But you go back, or maybe if you had the capability, or maybe you had, something now that we have, like maybe you could see what was on the camera or something like that. I think I was used as a point person in that way, so that they can see what's going on. So in their spacecraft, they're doing one thing.
It's sort of almost 90 minutes on this part two.
Well,
what about you getting some of this stuff drawn or something? Can you get anything, means of drawing it? Or?
Yeah, I could.
I could. Well, I'm asking you, goddamn focus on it and get it done.
Well,
and I want that on my desk by this time 3 weeks ago.
Well, step one was writing the book, which, then step two was like, how am I going to get my word out there? And that's how I tripped upon you somehow. I don't even know. And so I've been just trying to get, like, I'm not going to have a podcast because who would watch it? Like, my 3 friends, whatever. But if I can express myself to other people's podcasts to get the message out there. Well, I'm just trying to get the message out there.
You might not be able to draw it yourself, but maybe you could talk to somebody who could.
I know, but then they probably want money, and that I'm lacking in that right now, in abundance. I lack in abundance.
By the way, I noticed that you are available on oh God, I think I'm too loud now. On the what's that other publisher? That's where I got this from.
Barnes and Noble and Amazon.
Yeah, Barnes and Noble. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're distributing it. Are they printing it, or?
We don't even want to talk about Barnes and Noble because I just they keep screwing it up. They've got my book separate. I mean, I like the way they print my book. Very nice. But they've got it separate. So if you go to Barnes and Noble, you put my name in, or the book name in, you'll find a hardcover. You'll find a paperback. But I have more variations of my book, and they don't even have my ebook. And I've been fighting them for over a year. So, and then one time, I know they're messing with my book, because I even went into Amazon, and in my book, there were the last printing that I got, there were all these spelling errors.
Oh dear.
And I'm like, what the heck? Because I'm telling you, I put my book through about 4 different word processes. So everything was neat and tidy, because I don't have an editor. I'm an editor, so I'm having to use different editing forms and stuff like that. And I went in, because my voice said, go in and look at your book. I went in and looked at my book, and I'm like, holy crap, all this stuff is screwed up. So I had to spend some time. This was about Christmas time of this year. I spent some time. I fixed it up, bloopity bloop. And then not that long ago, a little bit at, like, let's say in January, the voice said, no, 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 go look at your book. I was like, what? So I went and looked in the book, and my cover was wrong. So here is the cover of my book. And at the bottom, it says, an awakening memoir. But all of a sudden on Amazon, and now let me tell you, as a self-publisher, there are PDFs, there's a lot of stuff you have to do, and you have to upload it. There are many, many steps, and you have to say, yes, 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 click on it, click on it. It's a lot of steps. The whole front cover was changed, and it said, a woman's experience about this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, somebody's been messing with the cover of my book. So now I gotta keep watching that they don't mess with my book, and I don't even know, did they Mandela affect my book? Did they mess with
no,
it?
I think they deliberately put the chapters in the wrong order and things. It's a big problem.
No, I don't
Maybe.
think so. Well, I just ordered 30 more books, so we'll see when they come. We'll see. We'll see. That would be very, very interesting. But I mean, because I had to set it all straight. I'm like, what the hell? But see, the voice talks to me and says, voice, I don't know, it's spirit, it's God, it's angels. I don't know who it is.
Well,
But
the
they
lady
avoided me,
that devises books is very, very good at finding books. So maybe a few people, and they can post them out and stuff as well.
I don't know, but they were messing with my book. And it's not easy. It's not easy for me to mess with my book. So all I'm going to say about that, like some people think it's negative or something like that. I always take things as a lark, because this life is a lark. We have to take this, we can't be afraid. And that's the thing. In final notes or something like that, if this is it, the biggest takeaway, the biggest anarchy thing you can do is random acts of kindness. We cannot live in fear, because they feed off of our fear.
Yeah.
We have to have.
Now, explain what you mean by that to others.
Well, because part of these, remember I was talking earlier about some of the ships, and they like Monsters Inc., they collect the screams, adrenochrome, the screams, the high energy negativity. They live off of that frequency. How do we combat them? How do we combat that? We have to stay heart-centered. We have to be whole, holy humans. We have to commit random acts of kindness. We have to stay kind, and we have to keep our thoughts out of fear, because then they can control us with fear. That's what they want. And if we don't fear, because I'll tell you what, I walk outside of my house, and you know what? And I could go to any country, I guarantee you, and I can walk around and say, here are good people. Here are nice, kind people. Right? We, the subjects, us little gerbils, the mice, the minions, we are good, kind people. We can't go into that fear frequency. That's where they start to control us. And that's what this whole thing is about. Because we are literally, people say a holy war, and I don't like to use the word war, but it's a decision-making time of good versus evil. And so my hugest takeaway, and in the end of my book, I say, if there's one thing you take away from this book, it's random acts of kindness. We have to, if you want to be a Christian or whatever your faith is, that is where we need to come from. And I'm telling you, it's more important to have, I don't care if you're out there hugging a tree. God bless your head. Go hug a tree. Nature. Be that. Don't do pharmaceuticals. Be in farms. We have to stay organic. We have to stay analog. They want us to be digital. They want us to not use cash. They want us to just more and more take away all of our powers. And we have to, as a whole.
Well, you have supreme power.
We all do. We are all sovereign, and we need to get to that point of understanding our divinity and who and how we are. That's how we combat this. Because we can sit there and go, the aliens this, or fallen angels that, or Anunnaki this, or Nephilim that, all these kinds of things. And that's fine. But whatever it is, if you can compartmentalize it, just as you're going about your business and you're interacting with other humans, it has to come from joy, happiness. I mean, you don't have to love someone, but you're at the grocery store, skip. When was the last time you skipped? There's so much freaking fun if you skip. I mean, it just raises you up. Raise up those frequencies, sing songs, do random acts of kindness, plant trees, all of these things. Stay whole and holy, humans.
Well, you have amazing energy and wisdom. You're fantastic,
thank you.
Dana.
Thank you.
Is it Dana or Dana?
It's Dana.
Dana.
And so, like Danann, like the Danube River
yeah.
and stuff like that. So she's the first, I didn't even know this, first Celtic goddess of the, of the Fae. Actually, Dana goddess created the Fae. Do I have my card here? Oh, no, I don't have my card here. But, yeah,
we'll do that next time.
Yeah, the leprechauns. There's a whole much, literally, Miles, we could have a sleepover. We could talk all night long. That'd be kind of fun.
Well, I like that sort of thing.
Tea.
But I'm going to get these parts 1 and 2 done. I'm multitasking.
I know.
I'm doing my Bases 2023 conference Christmas. It's probably, it's coming to the end of April, and I haven't got it uploaded yet.
But I would like to talk to you about how I levitated a person, levitated people. I had the hologram story. We never even got into that. Like 100 people. We transformed.
Write it all down.
Yeah,
make a list.
I know it.
And we'll make sure we cover it. Okay?
Well, isn't that a good tease for people to come back?
Pardon?
Isn't it a good tease for people to come back?
Continuing episode. Same channel, same time.
Same bat station. Thank you. You can read all about it in here.
Read all about it. Well, that's fantastic.
Extra.
This is great. Good fun.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
So much. I appreciate it.
And I'll do my little bit here to sort of switch the where is it, GoPro 1. So then I can do this. It's just I've decided to include this bit in the show when I do this. I'll do well. Why don't I show you what I do? And this is just such a big thrill. There's my equipment. You can see those.
Yeah.
Half of the reason for having this is the way the red lights circulate like that.
Yeah.
It's almost hypnotic.